Hey guys, Pastor Kyle here, along with Pastor Nigel. As you can tell, welcome to the video. This week we do every week. I don't know where you've been, but it's good that you joined us finally. No, not really. This is our first week doing something kind of new. We're pretty excited about it. The goal is every week. Don't hold me to that, but probably every week.
Most weeks.
We're going to do a video like this. It's kind of a follow-up, zoom in maybe on the text that we preach through on a Sunday, and the goal really is. It's going to be a midweek kind of post that we'll put up there. And the goal really is for us to kind of take the text, bring it back in front of all of us. It even helps us think through it a little bit more, look at the application. Sometimes go a little deeper, sometimes take a little different angle, talk about things we either didn't have time in on Sunday morning in the service, or just expand on things. We really hope it's valuable to you, though. It's already been valuable to us. That's not the point, but we like it. So that's what it is, kind of digging deeper on all of that.
Plus, you get an inside look at some of our shenanigans. And
much shenanigans.
You get to enjoy us.
That is true.
Hopefully, enjoy us.
Yeah, if you can make it through that, there's some really valuable stuff.
Some good stuff that we're talking
here. So we got a couple questions about this week's passage. First, I'm going to ask Nigel, give us a quick 30-second overview of where we went this week and what the sermon was on.
Yeah, absolutely. We were in John 11:45 through 12:11, and it started out talking about how the Pharisees they're losing their minds because they can't control Jesus. They're trying to figure out what to do. The Passover's coming up, and so everybody's wondering what's going to happen. Is Jesus going to show up? Is he not? The Pharisees have put out word they want to arrest him. And so then Mary and some others, they throw a dinner for Jesus, and there at that dinner, Mary comes and anoints Jesus' feet with some very expensive perfume. And Judas, among others probably, says, hey, shouldn't you have given up this year's wage for the poor? Shouldn't we have done that instead rather than using it for this purpose?
Reasonable question when you think about it.
Fair enough question.
Yeah.
You're using a year's wage on this.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, leave her alone. You'll always have the poor, you don't always have me. And then the passage ends with them going and trying to plot against Lazarus. They want to kill Lazarus because people are believing in Jesus because,
so crazy.
Hey, you're alive, we want to kill you now too.
Let's get rid of the evidence. That's kind of what
that's like.
Kind of what it is, really. Yeah, so great. That's a good overview. If you missed the sermon, go back and listen to it. It really was fantastic. So here's the first question I got. We talked about the hierarchy of value.
Yeah.
And we compared and contrasted some of the responses from all of the players in that room and what was going on. Walk us through a little bit of that, what you meant by the hierarchy of value.
Yeah, well, it starts with what Jesus says. He says, hey, she did what was right because you're always going to have the poor with you, but you don't always have me. There's this little bit of time that I'm going to be here on earth. You only have a little bit of time, and so actually I'm a higher value than taking care of the poor. Worship of me in this way that Mary has done is actually more valuable than taking care of the poor, as important as that is.
Yeah.
And so that sets up this idea that there are good things, but there's a hierarchy to them. And you need to have those in their proper place, proper prioritization of that. And when you get those out of place, you start getting into problems. And we see that with the Pharisees. We see them. The problem in the story is not, there are some people that care about wrong things, and there are people that care about right things.
That's an important point. It's all good things to care about, but they're misplaced.
Yeah, the Pharisees, they care about the temple. That's important. They care about their nation. They care about not having a riot. Judas is a liar, but he's bringing forth something that's good, caring for the poor. Yeah. But Mary's the one that has the proper alignment. And so as we look at our own lives and how we ought to be prioritizing things, God comes at the top. He's at the center of everything. And all the other goods, if they don't connect to God, they're hollow. They're missing the most important element. Yeah. It reminds me of like in Romans 1 when he talks about they started worshiping the creature rather than the creator. It's like you're missing the whole point. And so Mary is the one that gets it right. She gets the right hierarchy.
Yeah, and to the people in the room, you know, we look at it, we know the story, we kind of know what's happening, so we can cheat, we can see it from the outside. But if you're in that spot, you did such a great job of kind of bringing us into that moment, of her there at his feet and all that's going on. But everybody around was kind of like, what is she doing?
Yes,
she's crazy.
yes, yeah.
This great thing that she's doing that Jesus is about to say, no, she's right. They really don't get it. And we do the same thing in this hierarchy of value. We put the good things above the best thing. We kind of, and then when someone says, hey, why don't you care about this and why don't you care about that? You mentioned that as weaponized compassion. Man, that is such a good way to look at that. And it really, for me, it clarified some of the, a lot of the banter, the things, just the junk that's flying around us right now. A lot of good things are presented, but they don't quite pass the smell test, and so, but we don't know what to do with them because we do value these things, but how do we place that in comparison to how we value the kingdom and how we value Christ and our relationship with Him and our adoration of Him?
Yeah, like helicopter parenting would be an example of that, where you want to take care of your kids, you want to care for them, you want to take care of them. That's a good thing, but then when you overdo that, you overvalue that, things start to get out of whack, and all of a sudden
I'm guilty of that.
Those
I'm
kids.
in an Apache helicopter, by the way. I can see that happens to me. I got to be careful about. Yeah, that's
You're
true.
taking care of those kiddos of yours. Yeah. You want that. You should do that, but then it can go too far. Yeah. And when you get out of balance, when you get out of your priorities, get out of whack, you lose connection with God in that.
Yeah, so that's great. So this idea of Mary, we kind of have a picture of her there. She's surrendering everything. She's giving up this obviously incredibly expensive ointment and even her dignity. She takes her hair down and you see all that, what's going on. A lot of times we can look at that and we go, man, how do I get there? How do I get to where she is? How do I approach that as you kind of climb that hill, as you sort of talked about? And we want to get a little bit into that, knowing and remembering that there's an important, we kind of think, well, what do I have to give up? What is my pure nard, the ointment, the perfume, the most expensive, most valuable thing that I have, that I've got to bring myself to have the strength to give up in order to reach where she is, to achieve that. And that is not the way to look at it. That is not what happened right there. That's not what this passage is about. That's obviously not what Nigel was talking about on Sunday. If we realize and recognize that she was already there when she made that gesture, when she gave that, which is why she so eagerly made that sacrifice, expressed that adoration towards the Lord. When we put those in right order, then things can start to fall into place. So the next question really we have kind of with that in mind is, what does it look like for our hearts to be where she is? Not how do we get there by just sacrificing something, which might be what the Lord asks, but that's not how we get there. What does it look like for our hearts to be where Mary is in that moment? Because that's where we want to get to.
Yeah, I think as you look at Mary and as you pay attention to where she is, her focus is totally on Jesus. And it would have had to have been. It would have had to have been in the decision process to do it. It would have had to have been in the light of what Judas is saying and the tension in the room that's there. She has to stay focused on Jesus. And she didn't just muster up strength to get there. In college group yesterday, Janelyn was talking about Mary, and she was talking about all the other examples that we see of Mary and Martha. And Mary is always at the feet of Jesus. She's always there. She's always so focused on Him, and her heart is completely given over to Him. And she's enamored with who He is and His greatness and what He's done for her. And so when she has that love and that affection, everything else fades away. Yeah. Everything else goes away at that point. And she really just, all she cares about at that moment is the Lord and His pleasure in what she's doing for Him. Yeah.
Yeah, so good question. We don't have an answer. Even for myself, I got to probably pray through that and figure what I've been thinking about since yesterday. What are we overvaluing? Like, what are we taking that is good and trading it for what is best?
Right.
That might be hindering us from getting to that spot. And a lot of times, I think we think about that. And so for Mary, you have all these people around her who she cares about, who love her, who love Jesus, if you take Judas out of the equation, but who's in this room, right?
Let's get him out of
there. Get him out of there. But the rest of them, it's genuine. It's genuine, and the things they care about are good things. But again, they swap the good for the best. She's got all them in there looking at her judgmentally, yet she's still able to stay so focused and just kind of count all that as loss. Because the most important thing is Christ, who of course tells her, hey, she's got it right, and she thinks about what things might we be overvaluing, like they did, even with right intentions, even as they love the Lord. It's good to think about some of those things.
And it connects back with the series that we did through Ephesians, and all the things that you focused so much on were connected with these similar ideas. You have these grave clothes. You are the old self. You had that. You want to get rid of those. You want to take those off because they're hindering you. And this goes to the war that we're in. It goes to the way Satan operates. Satan, we often think of him as he's the one that brings all the evil. He's the one that shows the stuff in front of you that's horrible and wicked, and that's the way he gets you. Well, oftentimes the way he gets you is he allows you to have these good things, but then to overvalue them and to place them in the place of God instead. And so if we are to be good warriors and to pay attention to his schemes and what he's doing, we have to pay attention to not just the temptations that are obvious, but the subtle temptations that are, hey, this is a good thing, but I want you to put this in the place of God instead. And what Mary does so well is she's cast all of that off. She's cast all of that off, and she's only focused on him. And that's where her identity is. That's where her hope is. That's where everything is coming from, is seeking his pleasure.
And even what she's giving up, she's giving up this incredibly expensive ointment, a year's wages.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a big gift.
And so what's connected to that is, you could go in so many directions of what that's connected to, what she could buy with it, what she could buy that would serve the kingdom, which is kind of what Judas was getting at.
How many poor people?
How many poor people, and a lot of things that kind of go into that. And she was surrendering all of that to the Lord. And you could make an argument to say she's surrendering in part her future and her future plans and what she had in mind to do with that, whatever it would be. And then of course she's sacrificing her dignity in a way as she lets her hair down. There's a lot to that too. Her pride she's giving up, and her dignity. And we could talk a long time for that, and we don't want to go into too much detail on it, but that's a good place to start. For me, as I've been thinking about it, that's a good place to start thinking, well, what am I not sacrificing? When we surrender to the Lord, when we recognize that we've been bought at a price, he bought all of our past sins, all of our junk, all of that, and along with it, all of our future. All of our hopes, all of our dreams, all of our aspirations for what could be. That's a little harder to give up than all of the sin and the junk, right?
Oh man, what are your hopes and your dreams and your expectations, and like, what are your hopes for your kids? Oh man,
I don't want to talk about that.
I don't want to talk about that. That's too far.
Too far, man. Too far.
We went too far. Don't step on my toes.
That's true. That's very true.
But seriously, it's like, man, I love my kids. I want my kids. I love my daughters, and I want them to have a wonderful life, and I want them to have so much. But if I put them in the place of the Lord, I've stepped aside. And I've now
you sacrifice the good for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And that puts me in the place of the disciples rather than the place of Mary.
Yeah, so it's helpful to think about what is it that's holding me back? What's keeping me? What excuses am I making to myself for why I should not pour out everything? Because that's really what that was. It was a picture of her pouring out everything. Her value from a monetary sense and her value from her dignity. I'm going to give all of it.
Everything.
What are we going, well, I don't want to go that far because I can do so much better with this, and this, and this. And that's holding back from Christ. That's just something to think about, something I've been wrestling with, like, oh man, Lord, that's convicting, and there's a lot of good things in that. So the last question that I kind of want to get to, when we look at that and we go, how do I get there? What does it look like for me to be there? We can easily go, what's the most valuable thing in my life? I better give that up. I better trade that. Whether it's, I know a guy recently who is selling his house, downsizing so he can give a lot of those proceeds to the poor. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. If the Lord's led you to do that, that is amazing. But that's not necessarily what the Lord's going to lead us to or what he's asking of us. But we can sort of on our own come up with those things. And sometimes that can be an appeasement of guilt where, I don't deserve this, or this is the biggest thing I've got. I better give it to him. One of the things that is so remarkable about this story with Mary is she eagerly gives it. And that's another sign that she was already there spiritually. She believed Jesus.
Yeah.
And so she's doing
not
this
holding anything back.
out of an act of worship. It wasn't, I'm going to earn what I've gotten. That was not what's going on. So we talked, before we started filming, we were kicking through some of these things, and you talked about the idea of being situationally appropriate.
Yeah.
And how the Lord would ask you in your situation. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So connecting that question with what you were saying, sometimes it is important and another step in our development and our maturity to give something up, to sacrifice. There's something that we're holding on to, and I just need to give this up.
What's our perfume?
What's our perfume? A luxury that you have, something that is good that you have, and that's where our mind goes first, is like, okay, what do I have of value around here that I need to get rid of, that I need to go, so that I can attain the level that Mary's at. And something you said earlier is so important. Mary's already there.
She's already there.
Mary's heart is already there. She's not giving the ointment because the ointment is holding her back from fully embracing Christ. Her heart is already fully embracing Christ. She already loves him, and so it's coming out of that. So the first thing, as you're looking at your life and how would the Lord lead me to be like Mary, the first thing to look at and say is, I'm not giving something up so that I can attain a greater love for the Lord. You want to have that love already. You want to be fostering that love already. But let's say you've already got that. Let's say you've already attained that. You already love the Lord. You're desiring to give it something to him. There's an important detail from the passage, and it's the detail where Jesus says, she's doing this for my burial. And we talked in the sermon about how she's been listening. Jesus has been saying he's going to die, he's going to go to the cross, he's going to rise again, and she's been listening to that. And so this is coming off of something that is directly revealed from the Lord. This isn't something that she's just throwing up her idea, throwing that forward. If you want a good idea for what that looks like, it's Peter a few chapters later, where Peter's like, what do I have that I could give to the Lord? He's being betrayed. He's about to be arrested. I have my sword. Here's my sword. And he pulls it out, and Jesus is like, I don't want that gift. Yeah. Put it back. Put it away,
That's
man.
the passage I was reading when I got saved.
Yeah.
Because I was cheering for Peter, like, yeah, let's do this. And then Jesus goes, dude, you totally missed
don't
it.
do that.
And then I was like, oh, I missed this. And that's another video. But
that's an interesting, I want to hear that video. I want to hear that video. So don't just go out there and go, I need to just give something valuable. I need to do a big expression. It needs to be big emotions. It needs to be big. All of that, if it's coming from a place where the Lord is asking for it, that's the point. What is the Lord asking you to give up? Don't try to come up with something and I bet the Lord would like this. Right. That's Peter with a sword. What is the Lord talking to you about and asking you to give up? That's what it's really about. And so we were talking, and you had a story about your motorcycle.
Yeah, let's talk about my motorcycle.
Let's talk about your motorcycle.
No, I was sharing just on that example years ago when I had a different motorcycle.
Not the Triumph?
Not the Triumph Bonneville. No, it was a different one. It wasn't as cool. But no, I had this motorcycle, and I don't remember the circumstances that led me to it, but it was a similar discussion or sermon or passage. I was kind of thinking through, what do I need to give to the Lord? What can I give? What is there more of me that I can give up? And at the time, this particular motorcycle was just like, I might say it was close to an idol. It was kind of in that realm.
Floating in and out of it,
in a spiritual way. And I'm like, hey, I'm great. But it kind of was in that spot. And I thought, man, I need to be willing to give this up to the Lord. I need to, which is true, but I need to give this over to the Lord. And so I had it in my mind that if if I sold my motorcycle and gave that money to whoever God told me to give it to, gave it to the church, gave it to a ministry, gave it to the whatever it would be. If I did that, then I kind of appease this guilt of feeling like I don't deserve this and I can't earn this. And this would prove to the Lord that I mean it when I tell him I love him. And just all these jumbled up things in my mind, which came from a good place, but it was very misguided in just the thought that if I make this sacrifice that I'm not being led to, that I don't want to, that's not from a willing heart, it's just out of maybe this will help me get to where I want to be or get to where I need to be, then it would work. Anyway, long story, a little less long. I tried to sell it. I put it up for sale, way cheap. And by God's grace, he's like, I don't want your dumb motorcycle, Kyle. And nobody wanted to buy it, and so I obviously
you lowered their price too. It was pretty low.
This is a pretty low price, and
like, no one's taking this.
No one's taking this. What the heck? And that was the Lord just saying, hey, that's not what I'm doing, Kyle. And I had to kind of wrestle through some of that thing and learn that. But yeah, that's an example of trying to get to where Mary is by giving up something that the Lord's never asked me to give up, rather than just loving him, trusting him, even enjoying the gifts and the blessings he gives us with the right perspective. So when the time comes, if the time comes in this situationally appropriate time, through listening to the Lord, you can make that sacrifice with a willing and eager heart. So big difference between doing it in the flesh, which you kind of talked about at the beginning, and doing it in the spirit. They can look the same, but in the flesh you've got all these wrong ways to do it. Down all the way to Judas, which is all sinful lies. And then doing it in the spirit is what we got with Mary.
Yeah, and I think at the center of this is the character of who Christ is.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And first off, his worthiness to receive goodness from us, his worthiness to receive love and to receive our full hearts and our offerings and all of that. But it's also... He's not here. He's not wanting to shame us. He's not wanting to guilt us. He's not wanting to make us feel horrible for wearing these grave clothes. That's not at the center of his character. At the center of his character is, come be with me. Come fellowship with me. And so as you're thinking through your gift, whatever that may be, or trying to be like Mary and trying to have a heart that loves him, and you're thinking through, how does that apply in my life? I want you to really have Christ's character at the center of your heart and at the center of what you're thinking of. And remember, he's not just trying to guilt you into giving him something.
Yeah, it's never your stuff he wants.
It's not.
He's not like, if I only had some perfume. It's not our stuff that he wants. It's what our stuff is often tethered to, and that's our heart. And when it hurts to give something, it's because it's pulling on our heart, and we don't.
Yeah.
So that's why giving cheerfully, graciously, with an eagerness, is a picture of a heart in the right place, because that's what he wants is our heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He didn't want. Apparently, he wasn't short on motorcycles either.
No,
so
motorcycle.
He wasn't like, give me your motorcycle.
I don't need your trash motorcycle, Kyle. You
It's
can
true.
leave me alone.
He had a Triumph, so he didn't.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
All right, well, that's great. I hope this was helpful to you guys thinking through things. It's probably way over time. I don't know how long this video has been, but I won't even tell you.
Not over on enjoyment.
Yeah, of course not. Yes, that's true. But yeah, man, we hope it's a blessing to you guys. And again, we're shooting to do this every week, and we'll get better at it. I'm gonna try to work out a little bit. So
He'll get better.
A little easier.
I don't know. But, I don't know if I'll improve at all. But we'll give it an effort.
Good stuff. We'll try. Be kind to us. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking out. If you made it this far in the video, I'm really
applause to you. Applause to you.
Job.
Thank you.
I don't comment because I don't know.
You're still talking. Why are you still talking?
That's good. All right, thanks. See you guys.